Hello, welcome once again to the Digital Rights Africa podcast, where we talk about everything data protection, privacy, cybersecurity, child online protection, and digital rights issues across Africa. I'm very excited today because we have been joined by another regulator, and she's by the name of Mrs. Stella Alibateese. Did I get the name right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I'll shorten it for Stella for now so that I don't go back to my mistakes. And I have known Stella for a while, and so I'm very terrible at pronouncing the last name. I'm now learning, so I wouldn't repeat that. But she is the National Director for Personal Data Protection in Uganda. Stella, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you very much, Teki, and I'm happy to be here.
I'm very excited to hear about progress that Uganda is making since the passage of your law. And by the way, we haven't had any opportunity to formally talk since you got elevated to this position, because I know you have done a lot of work in the background prior to the passage of the law as well. So congratulations on becoming the National Director. Can you tell us a bit more about, how things are going with your work in Uganda?
Thank you very much, Teki. As you know, the first time we met, this law was a bill at the time at the Africa Data Protection Summit in 2018, yes, which happened in Mauritius. During that conference, I did inform the participants that we were soon going to pass the bill into law. And our parliament did pass that bill in 2019, and it took effect in May 2019. In Uganda, when we pass our laws, we largely do principle-based laws. So you find that you need regulations to be able to start the implementation of the law. Those regulations were passed last year in 2021, and following the passing of those regulations, we now opened the office with me as the first national director. The office started operating in August 2021.
Okay.
So we've been in operation for slightly over a year.
Yeah, yes.
And despite that, I think we've made great strides. In the first year, we focused more on, first of all, recruiting a few people, which we're able to do, and then starting the process of registration. Under the Ugandan law, registration is compulsory for any data controllers and data processors, and also data collectors. So we started with a manual process, which, as you may know, is very cumbersome.
Yes.
When an organization would bring their application, if you told them you made a mistake here, they would have to go and redo the entire application. So obviously that slowed down the compliance aspects, because when you'd send them back, it would take them 3 months to come back. Luckily for us, we found there was already a partnership with the organization we work with that enabled us to build a system with the support of UNCDF, which is a UN organization. So our process right now is totally digitized, and we've had even registrations from companies that are based abroad but are actually marketing to Ugandans, or targeting Ugandans, yes, or even doing work in Uganda, where they are not necessarily based in the country but are doing business there. So that online registration, in my view, has also helped. Beyond registration, we have issued guidance notes, yes, to be able to support the industry on what needs to be done. Those guidance notes are largely based on the key areas we are implementing. For instance, how do you register? That was an issue. We've done that. How do you raise a complaint? If you want to raise a complaint, what do you need to do? Okay. Do you, for instance, come to us directly? No. Okay. You have to first try to resolve that complaint with a data controller before you come to us. We've now, in addition to that, digitized that process. So within that system, you can be able to raise your complaint. And having talked to some of the complainants, we were able to address issues. For instance, you find that because we require that you write formally about your complaint, because remember, we are raising evidence. Exactly. When you come to us, we should be able to know, you should be able to demonstrate that you did talk to the controller, and the best way to do that is to submit your complaint in written form. In many cases, you find people may not want to sit down and write a letter. I'm proud to say that within that system, the system can actually generate for you a very, very good letter. The first time I saw it, I thought it had been written by a lawyer. So we are digitizing a number of our processes to make it easier for these complaints to be raised, to make it easier to register, but also on our side to make it easier for us to follow up. So far, that part of the system was went into production in May 2022 actually, and in about 3 months we had over 1,000 complaints. Wow. So what that tells us is that there's a lot of work that we need to do, and we need to educate as many people as possible so that controllers are able to resolve some of these complaints without them coming to us. Lastly, we've done a lot of stakeholder sensitization. We can come to an organization if they invite us. We speak to the staff. We normally start with the management team. From there, we then have an audience with the entire staff of an organization. We are using a lot of digital technologies because, as you know, when you've just started an office, resources are not really in abundance. So we find that using digital tools really, really helps us to leapfrog so that we are able to reach bigger audiences.
Wow, this is very commendable. I mean, having sat in your seat before, I know, you know, being able to achieve all this in a year is almost impossible. So what has accounted for a lot of these, you know, achievements?
I think for us, there are a number of things that have helped us along. First of all, being set up within an existing organization has helped. Because what I know for certain is that as government, and I believe many other governments, we struggle with resources. I was telling someone earlier that when you have to compete with a road in a rural area, or compete,
that will bring direct votes.
Yes, or compete with a hospital, or compete with agricultural inputs, and you're talking about privacy and data protection. It's not the easiest conversation that you'll have. But when you're set up within an existing organization, you can actually make use of the resources. For instance, staff, we've really used a lot of digital tools because NITA Uganda, where we sit, is the technology organization for the government of Uganda. So some of these things come very easily to us, and it's quick for us to adopt them. Things like the webinars. Of course, COVID also helped because people are now more amenable to attending webinars than previously, where you'd have to organize a workshop. In this case, for instance, beyond the targeted sensitizations that we do, we started with regulators. So you'll find our central bank is registered with us already. And because they are registered, it really, really helped to get the banking sector on board. As I speak now, I think over 99% of the financial institutions that are registered, that are licensed, are registered with us. We've done the same thing with the Uganda Communications Commission, which is the telecom regulator. They are also registered with us, and all our big telecom companies and ISPs are registered. We've gone to the Gaming and Lotteries Board. It is also registered with us, and now it's a requirement that before they renew your license, you must present a registration with the office. We've done the same with the NGO Bureau, which is the regulator for civil society organizations. They are also registered and are enforcing the law on our behalf. Okay. I think that has really helped us working with other regulators who already have the who already have teeth to bite. When you're new, you have to learn. You have to prove yourself. People may ignore you. You may, having been in this seat. But if the central bank speaks, for instance, all banks will run. If the NGO Bureau speaks, all the civil society organizations will run. So that has helped us in terms of creating that awareness. We started with the regulators and would meet their management teams. So we started at the top. We'll talk about the need for the law, convince them why their regulated industry needs to comply, and I think that has helped. Secondly, as I said, we are big on technology. We started doing webinars. And normally, at first, of course, we were speaking, because we talk about the law and things like that. But then we also started inviting industry experts so that they don't only hear from us. They hear from private sector, how are they complying and things like that. We found that our webinars were quite popular. So what we did in that 1 year of operation, we did about 12 or 13 webinars. So we do a webinar every month, and we've continued to do that.
That's excellent.
What we do, we now also record those webinars. So we set up a YouTube channel. It's free. So we direct people. If you need to know the DPO's role, go to that, you know, the YouTube. And we found that it is really helping, because recently we're doing a needs assessment for our data protection officers to determine what kind of capacity building they need. And we're happy to note that over 78% of them indicated that the capacity building they have received is actually from the Personal Data Protection Office. So
that's amazing. For you to do this within a year, it's commendable. I mean, congratulations.
Thank you.
I have seen a few of your webinars also on your social media sites and the rest. Having said that, so you seem to be going in the right way. What have been the challenges? Have there been any hurdles, or it's all smooth sailing?
It is not smooth sailing. First of all, we still don't have enough funding. We are probably making lemonade with the lemons that we've been given, because our view within the office is that let's use whatever is available to us to be able to have an impact. For instance, that is why even when we do not have the expertise within the office, it's amazing how many people want to talk about these issues. So you invite them, as long as you know they will do a good job, and they speak, and you provide that forum. We still have a challenge with compliance. The task ahead of us is enormous, and we've really just scratched the surface. There's a lot of work that we need to do. There are many times when you even feel overwhelmed, because if you set up a system and in 3 months you have over 1,000 complaints.
But I think that's also a very good thing, especially with the complaints, because it shows you that people are listening, and it really speaks to the fact that, you know, the awareness creation that is going on is very significant. So I think that is a good thing in a way, yes, but it puts a lot of challenges on your back. But how are you really tackling the issues of enforcement and compliance? And are you there yet? Because I would say that for a year, you know, you should give yourself time for people to know and understand the system. But
we are not yet there, because we have very limited human resources within the office. Our view is that as much as possible, we need to do templates to allow people to, you know, self-assess themselves, to allow people to develop these things themselves. What we do, and that's why we record most of our webinars, so that we give as much information as possible to our regulated industry to make it easy for them to comply. We've had, beyond those complaints, when the complaints come in, we are required by law to resolve those complaints, and it takes a lot of time. And when we have limited resources, it also becomes much harder. We are discussing the possibility of using AI so that we can weed out some of those complaints, because when my team looked through them, they found that maybe 30 to 40% were actually related to data protection. Others were related to issues with telecoms and you know, and all that. So AI would also reduce the time it takes for us to review everything and just pick out what we need to do. The second thing that we are doing is to do guidance notes and a lot of templates. Would want to develop these templates and even automate them. For instance, our law requires that the data protection officer submits an annual compliance report to the office. So what we did, rather than the law did not it provided what you provide, but not the structure. So we did the structure. Then we had, you know, training with the DPOs, and we asked them to use that template to submit. About 50% of those that are registered were able to submit, which in our view was a good turnaround time. In terms of the actual compliance within the organizations, there's still a lot of work to be done. Even us as an office, we are just starting the process. What we did, we developed a tool, what we'll issue eventually as a self-assessment tool, looking at our law, benchmarking on other countries and what they are doing. And right now it's an Excel tool, but very detailed. It has various areas of priority in terms of compliance, whether leadership, DPO training, where does the DPO report, you know, that nitty-gritty detail. And we put it in form of questions. So you find leadership, we have like 20 questions. When it comes to the DPO, we have another 25 questions. So we've tested that tool. We did about 10 compliance assessments, audits of some kind, just to give us a feel. What are the big companies doing? What is their readiness status? And we chose, if we went to a banking sector, we chose the biggest bank, insurance, the biggest insurance firm, hospital, we chose the biggest, government body, we chose the government body that deals most with the common person and things like that. So we chose 10, and we're very intentional about those 10 because we shall use the results then to have a feel. These organizations, what is their readiness, how ready are they, what can we do, and also to test that tool that we've developed, how effective is it. Because when we start the audit, we normally share that tool with the data protection officer, and we ask them to respond to those questions. Then we go in and look at the detail. If we ask, do you have a privacy policy, for instance, we'll then ask, where's that privacy policy? Then we'll read through it. Do you have a DPO? We'll want to see their job description. Where do they report? When breaches happen, is the DPO present in the room when they are discussing those issues, or does it stop at the top management level? One of the things that we think is a game player in the compliance aspect is the designation of data protection officers for each organization. Under our law, it's not mandatory for you to have a data protection officer. Only those organizations that have high volumes are required to have data protection officers. However, it is something that we encourage, yes. And when we do our registration process, we normally ask, who have you designated? The beauty about our law is that it doesn't say appoint, it says designating, which then means I can be a compliance officer, but I'm the designated data protection officer. The reason for that was because our organizations are small, they may not have money to appoint that resource. But when they designate, at least you have someone in charge or someone who has that responsibility. And I think that is really, really helping with compliance.
I have so many questions for you, but my time is up. So you have to come back. I know I'm used to stressing you, but you have to come back because you've been doing a lot within such a short time. And I can't help but to commend you because this is really, really a lot of work. And I think that there's a lot of learning in here for up and coming data protection regulators as well, because really with the limited resources, you have been able to achieve a lot. And what I'm really getting from all of this conversation is how you've been able to leverage on either existing institutions, existing partnerships, existing relationships to be able to build this ecosystem within such a short time. Thank you very much for being here. And all too soon, we have come to the end of another wonderful episode with the regulator for Uganda. Viewers, I'll see you again another time on the Digital Rights Africa podcast, where we discuss everything privacy, data protection, child online protection, cybersecurity, and intellectual property rights issues across Africa. Thank you and see you soon. Bye.